Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to another tremendous day of online learning. We're going to kick off today by reviewing yesterday's activities, which were questions 47, 48, 49, and 50 from our workbook. So in front of you, you should see a PDF or an excerpt from a PDF, the top 3rd of March model answer supply. And you'll see in the middle of your screen, Horrocks' hogs daily supply curve of hogs. Okay, now let's check Mr. Horrocks' work per our lovely handy hint, tall, title, axes, line, and label. Okay, we'll see that my title is correctly showing the time period, what is being graphed, i.e. a supply curve, and of the product or the good or service, which is hogs in this case, and I've underlined it as well. Now let's have a look at the axes. Okay, so on my y-axis I've got price, and on the x-axis I've got quantity. Fantastic. But let's dive a little bit deeper into the values I've included. 0, 50, 100, all the way through to 500. Great, we can see that the intervals between each values are even on my y-axis with $50 increments, and it's important to keep these intervals even so that our graph is to scale. Now the highest price on our supply schedule was $400, but you'll see I've included up to 500. Now this just gives me a little bit of breathing room or a bit of headroom just in case I'm asked to make changes to my supply curve. Now changes are something that we're going to consider a little bit later in this course, but you'll appreciate why I put headroom in certainly at that point. And then another reason is we like to give a little bit of space for presentation purposes. It's never a great look to have our supply curve squashed right up to the maximums on our axes. It just simply looks a little bit better as well. Okay, considering my x-axis, great, we can see that again, nice evenly spaced intervals, moving from 1 to 2 to 3 hogs. So our graph is going to be to scale. Now let's consider our line, the first L on tall, and we can see I've plotted all the known combinations of quantity supplied and price, and they match up accurately to each of my axes. Fantastic. Now also I have a straight line connecting each point that I have plotted, or each combination, and in this case our changes for price and quantity supplied are linear in the sense that they move up 1 hog per $50. So that's why my straight line between each points is actually going to be a straight line overall. This is not going to always be the case with supply curves. As you get more deeply into economics, you'll find that the gradient actually changes. But for the purposes of our course, supply curves are generally shown as a straight line, or at the very least there'll be straight lines shown between known combinations of price and quantity supplied. Okay, we're going pretty well so far. 3 out of the 4 for tall. Now let's look at the last one, label, and yes, I've got my S there to denote that this is in fact the supply curve and not just some random line I've drawn. Fantastic. So that's question 47, guys. Any questions or issues, absolutely email me. You know my email address. Now let's have a look at questions 48 and 49. So you were asked to calculate the daily revenue for Horrocks' hogs if the price is 100. Well, we know our formula is price times quantity. So the amount of money that's coming into my business is going to be the amount of money I make on each sale of my good. So that's going to be the price times the quantity sold. The price is 100, and when the price is 100, Horrocks' hogs supplies 2 hogs. 100 times 2 is 200. And just to copy and paste that same rationale for question 49, price times quantity, 300 price, and at 300 price, Horrocks' hogs is going to supply 6 hogs. Per the law of supply, we're seeing the amount of quantity supplied increase as price rises. Price times quantity is going to be $1,800. So Oryx's hog certainly likes a higher price. Okay, question 50. Explain why Oryx's hogs will supply more hogs when the price rises from 100 to 300. Well, Oryx's hogs will supply more hogs as the price rises due to the law of supply. Now you can see I've included values in my answer here, just to build in the complexity from our Hamilton's honey response to really link my answer to the question, to really show the examiner that I'm answering the question dynamically. I haven't learned an answer on price changes affecting supply. I'm actually integrating the question material into here. Make reference to the law of supply, and I follow that with a definition of law of supply. Then I start explaining actually what is the basis for the law of supply. Now, the law of supply comes about because of the profit incentive provided at higher prices. Now, as the price rises, producers are able to make more profit on more goods that they sell. So at the higher prices, I can make more profit. Oh, Oryx's hogs can make more profit. So by having a price at 300, I'm now able to make a profit off the 3rd to 6th hogs sold. So these are the 4 additional hogs that I'm selling. If I was to try and sell 6 hogs at $100, I wouldn't make a profit off these 3rd to 6th hogs. But by the price increasing to 300, I can now make a profit off these additional hogs. Now, this is because the cost of production rises for each additional hog produced. And we're going to touch on this a little bit further in this class. So then I sum it up by making the connection between profit, price rise, and law of supply. Okay, hope you guys got acceptable answers there. I'm absolutely happy and keen to review your work. So please send me your work if you would like some feedback. Now, okay, gentlemen, so what we have here is we have slide 6 of our PowerPoint BEA 6 supply 1. Now, unfortunately, my screencast is not entirely going to let me update my screencast area, so I'm sorry that it's cut off some words, but we'll make accommodations for that. So we're just looking at individual supply versus market supply. This follows the same pattern that individual demand and market demand exhibited, and that being that market supply is the total of all producers' quantity supplied in a market at each price, horizontal summation. So we'll see that all the individual supply curves in a market, if you total them together, you're going to get market supply. And we can work out market supply through horizontal summation, which means adding together all the quantity supplied at each price level for all the individual producers. Key point is that market supply is a driver of market prices. All right, so an activity following this is to calculate the fishing rod market supply from all the individual supply curves found on work page 40. So there's actually no number for this activity, hence why I haven't numbered that, but it's on work page 40. Okay, gentlemen, so if you could please undertake this activity, which little handy hint is going to be totaling together all of these different individual supplies at each price level. And I'm going to ask that you submit your market supply values to me through the grammar doWork function. Okay, so we're going to move to considering our final slide for today, and that's looking at changes in supply. So changes in supply, gentlemen, come about because of non-price factors shifting. So you can see there's a similar theme here to our demand topic. Now, when we have an increase in supply, it'll shift our supply curve to the right. So if we look down the bottom left of our screen, and the consequence of this is that greater quantities are now able to be supplied at each and every price. So at P1, originally on S1, our original supply curve, our market would supply 2,000 units at 30 P1, Q1. We increased supply to S2, and now we can supply 6,000 units, or Q2. Decrease in supply is the inverse. Our supply curve shifts to the left, which means that there is less supplied at each and every price level. So 40, we would originally supplied 8,000. Now we're supplying roughly 3,500. Okay, so these changes in supply come about because of non-price factors. And we've got 6 non-price factors that we're going to discuss in more detail in the coming lessons. Cost of production, which I hinted at in terms of my answer for Horrocks' hogs. Level of technology, weather and natural events, taxation and subsidies, rahui, and external shocks. So when these factors change, this is going to impact the ability of firms or producers to supply their goods at different prices and quantities. So when there are favorable, positive changes in these factors, it's going to increase supply, shift our supply curve out to the right, or if there are unfavorable or negative changes in these factors, it's going to shift our supply curve to the left or decrease supply. And we're going to talk about these in much greater depth in the coming lessons. For the purposes of this slide, I'd just like you guys to copy it down into your exercise books. And along with that, I'd like you guys to copy in the 2 different models that we've got, showing an increase in supply and a decrease in supply. Of course, gentlemen, you are more than welcome to read ahead in our course and absolutely fire me through any questions that you might have. Well, all the best for today, gentlemen. You'll find this video, of course, on our GrammarNet page along with the model answer. Kia kaha.